To me, he felt like a white guy failing upwards. That was.
White guy failing upwards. When you make your characters black and white, but you also aren't telling a story with a particularly interesting or thematic setting, the end result is bland storytelling, because why do I care? Right? There's no moral complexity to this character, there's no questions to ask. The settings isn't interesting. So you're literally watching it for, as you mentioned the analogy of comfort food, right? And that's exactly what it is. You're watching it because you don't have to think.
Yeah.
Captain America's always going to be the good guy.
That's what, to me, was so horrible about, the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones. Like, that show was mostly character-driven, actually, in the beginning. It was all about their motivations and their personalities leading to certain things. And in the last couple of seasons, it was just, like, way more story-driven. It just completely went in a different direction, where it was just way more about, we want to have our characters end up in this and this and this situation, so we're going to have this and this happen to get there.
It's cool. The dragons can fly across the entire world in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of thing that doesn't make any sense, right? Whereas, like, for instance, when Arya runs into the Faceless Man, you don't question why it is there are Faceless Men, or where the hell they came from, or where they've been. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that the logical next step in the story of Arya Stark is a way for her to get revenge.
Yeah.
Right? And this just kind of makes a kind of logical sense. You understand the character's need and satisfaction. Whereas, like, the Madness arc at the end of the story made no freaking sense.
Yeah.
I understand where they were trying to go thematically. There is a way to have told that story.
You could have gone to that conclusion, but you should have. They should have taken their time, and they should have. Yeah, it's.
Like, I could understand where they were going thematically, but that quite simply wasn't where they went. That wasn't what they did. Instead, they just ruined a perfectly good plot.
Yeah.
You should be criminal, man. I had invested so much time in that damn series.
I mean, really though.
When I got to those last 2 seasons, apart from the Battle of the Bastards, which I thought was amazing.
The Battle of the Bastards wasn't even in the books, mind. That was an example of the show being an amazing writing course. And, like, not only that, the reason it was so interesting is because they used real-world battle tactics. So whether you knew that or not, they simply made sense. This is why I'm always an advocate for writers doing their freaking research, even if the audience won't understand it. It's not about that. It's about it looking good on screen.
Yeah.
And what happened during the Battle of the Bastards looked like it made sense, because it does. That's exactly a thing that happens in real life, or happened in real life.
But Jon Snow was kind of like standing with his sword by himself against a lot of people rushing towards him.
Yeah, no, okay, that part is nonsense. I meant the ultimate way that the battle was won effectively before the cavalry came out, right? The fact that they were crushed by a shield wall into a wall of bodies, and this made it impossible for them to maneuver, and this was the problem. The fact that the solution to this was a cavalry charge from behind the ranks of the shield wall. This all made sense, because that is a tactic and a thing that happened in real life. It all makes genuine sense. Okay, his hero, John's hero moment made no sense.
Yoshi just ate a rock.
Yep.
He was like, noms.
He does not care, okay?
He's getting some fiber up in here.
Dude, his stomach acid, freaking amazing. Yeah, like, it just kind of made sense.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. But, I mean, it did look good, but...
Right.
Well, it's kind of similar to, like hacking in movies. You don't have to know how to hack anything in order to pretty quickly understand something is off when someone is trying to hack into the mainframe by just randomly pressing buttons. You don't have to know the actual... You don't have to know how the actual thing works in order to feel something is off when it doesn't make any sense. And I can see the same thing applying to, like, for example, like, huge scale battles. Like, I don't know military strategy, but when I just see people randomly running at each other and trying to sort of, like, sling blades at one...
When someone says the archers are charging, you know there's a problem.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't have to know what the actual strategy should be, but you do know this doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Right, and this is the problem, right? The writer should know, so the reader doesn't have to.
Yeah.
But this is also, like, where we end up in situations, like, for instance, during one point in the fight in the dark, that one horrible episode,
I don't think I've seen that episode.
Outside towards the end of the catapults
No, it's a really bad,
bad
joke.
Yeah,
it never happened for you.
Oh, fair enough.
Right.
I've never seen it.
Never happened. Yeah. The catapults were outside the walls.
Yeah.
Okay. The cavalry was sent to die in the dark with no knowledge of where the bad guys were.
They were in the dark.
Yeah.
They were in the dark.
There was an entire castle behind you could have used to fortify and siege, but no. Like, just so much about that was just so silly, and people are trying to come up with explanations now to make it make sense. But I'm like, but there was no demonstration of any of the things you're talking about. You're literally making up excuses. There was no way for anyone to reasonably make any of the assumptions you're making in an attempt to make this make sense.
So bad.
Like, so silly. Whereas Battle of the Bastards is so much better by comparison, even though Jon Snow did have his moment standing by himself in front of freaking cavalry.
They did make it look badass, but as much as I liked him very much as a character up until that point, you know, like, his naivete, I think, just kind of worked for me. Like, it seemed sensible, you know, given his background and everything.
Yeah.
I found him to be a very psychologically plausible character.
To me, he felt like a white guy failing upwards.
That
was
White guy failing up. I mean, yeah, basically. Just a mediocre white man failing upwards.
It's just, to me, the biggest shame is that they just went for one of the... I'm sorry, they went for one of the lesser actors, one of the bigger parts. Like,
Really?
Richard Madden was so much better, for example.
Who was Richard Madden?
He played the brother.
Jamie?
No.
Theon.
No, like the actual brother. The actual son, the actual would-be king.
Yeah.
Oh, Bran?
No.
Not Bran, the other one. The one that died at the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The
I know
actual...
what you're talking about.
God, what's he called again? White.
Robert?
Yeah. Robert? No.
No, not Robert. It was something normal sounding. But it was Robb Stark, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, Rob.
But it wasn't Robert. It was Robb something.
Yeah, it was just always called Rob, yeah.
But yeah, the important thing is, like, you know, I understand what you mean. I like Kit Harington. I just... You know, again, like, Jon Snow didn't have enough complexity for me.
No.
If they had put him in more situations where he had genuinely no clue what the hell to do because he's just a normal dude, but he's in a position of leadership and has to make a decision, that would have been interesting. Instead...
I thought they were doing that when, like, he kept getting politically outmaneuvered and, like, Sansa was the one that, like, had the political brains or something, right?
Yeah, and as she should have, right? She was supposed to win against Littlefinger. That was her arc. But,
oh man, Varys and Littlefinger, like all those characters who were portrayed and presented as like these amazing cunning masterminds, and then because the plot needed them to be idiots, they just turned into idiots in the last couple of seasons.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, Tyrion, Varys, Littlefinger, like
all of them.
So many of them.
But no, I mean, like, okay, yeah, technically speaking, he was outmaneuvered, but didn't he always make the morally right decision and somehow end up okay?
Yeah, I
It was
think
just
so.
Right?
so
Like, how many
milquetoast.
times did he make a poor decision or a decision that was morally questionable? I can't remember a single time. They kept him, like, totally on a certain path. Whereas I think it would be much more interesting if at some point he was forced to decide, what do you do? Right, just put him in a morally great situation. What do? Do you kill the peasants and end a revolt and stabilize the country? Do you stop the massacre and not kill people who are honestly just hungry? But in exchange,
I mean, if you
destabilize
kill
the
them,
entire
they're not going
country.
to be hungry anymore. So that's
Well,
like
there is that. But my point is, like, I'm just
That's
trying
like
to
a
come up with a morally difficult scenario, right? He has no political training.
hunger.
That would have been the real crucible for Jon Snow. Is with none of the political training or savvy that any of his family have. You throw him in that situation and let him wonder what he should be doing. But instead, that just wasn't the case. Even by the time he made the choice at the end to kill what's her face,
Yeah.
Daenerys, right? And I don't even feel bad about spoiling it because if you haven't seen it, don't bother. But
Yeah.
like, like even at the end, right? I think it would have been much more interesting if her madness had been hinted at. And
That's
he
the
had
thing,
made
like-
decision to kill her in order to prevent the eventual possible.
That's the whole
madness.
thing. Like the place where she ends up as a character makes total sense to me. It's perfect. The thing is that I never understood why anybody was rooting for her. Even though, like, everybody was, oh my god, Khaleesi, and like everybody was crazy about her. But I was always like, she's like the most entitled, power-hungry, horrible person. And to me, it made total sense where she ended up. The thing is that it feels like if this is where she started out, and this is where she needed to end up, like, they took 4 seasons for her to go from here to here, and in the last 2 seasons, they did this.
Yeah.
Like, just
Yes.
they just sped up that entire development like crazy. That was just so rushed.
I didn't have as many problems with her, but I think that's also because like I identified with her as a survivor and I liked her to a degree. But
I just thought of her as like a rich kid who was like, my parents were emperor,
Did
so
she
I
ever-
should be too.
did
And
she
that was-
ever benefit from the riches?
No, but it's power hungry is still not a good thing to have. Like, Trump maybe not maybe Trump didn't get all the money he wanted from what he did, but it was still really terrifying to have a power-hungry, crazy person like him try and get to the Oval Office. Like, that's what she reminded me of.
I didn't get that sense. It's an interesting perspective. No, I mean, I saw her as a survivor. I don't think she benefited from.
But she could also survive without owning people and without trying to sort of claim like the throne to an entire continent. Why she doesn't need that to survive and be a cool and interesting and strong character. I was like, her entire focus and her entire goal and her entire everything was all about becoming the emperor, the queen of that world. And
I feel like it was better explained in the books.
Oh, I can see that. I have them. I never read them.
Like, I mean, I'm not gonna recommend them myself.
Yeah,
no.
But I think, especially like in that first book, I actually really liked the relationship with Daenerys and Drogo, and then I saw it on screen and I hated it. I wanted to murder somebody. And that's because the relationship was so wildly different. And I can give you a good like explanation actually really quickly in that their wedding night scene was so different.
I've heard of that. I've heard that before actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this show, just so you understand, they reduced it to a rape basically. Right. That's all it was. He was like, all right, you're mine now.
Yeah.
Boom. Right. Now you compare that then to the book, where on the night of their wedding he presented her with this beautiful horse because his people ride all the time and she needs one. And then he got her on top of it, and they rode together to a spot he'd pre-selected that was wildly romantic and incredibly beautiful. And he'd chosen this particular place to sit with her until the sun had come down. And then he very slowly began to make himself more vulnerable and show a more vulnerable side to himself. Despite the fact they couldn't speak the same language, they found a way to communicate.
And I mean, she wasn't going to say no because of the implication.
Well, she wasn't going to say no at the time in that scene because her brother had been abusing her and she didn't know she could, in effect. But at the same time, he actually asked. Like, he found a way in the book, without speaking the same language, to kind of ask.
Yeah.
And I think it was because the only word he knew was no. And they had this, like, cute moment where, like, he just kind of, like, indicated something and asked no. And
I like no?
She said no, but no in the affirmative because it was the only word he knew and it was weird, but they should recognize that. It was actually kind of a cute scene where he found a way to ask for consent in a way. And he got it before they proceeded, and that's why their bond was so strong, because she was abused most of her life, came into this marriage where she expected that to continue, and instead found comfort in this person, and that made her so loyal to him right away. And from that point, he was actually a decent person too.
Yeah, they were way more like a cool, interesting power couple. I've heard that before in the books.
Right, like he was actually very nice to her, and she healed a little bit when she was with Drogo. And eventually there came a point when one of the people pointed out to her, like, you realize you don't have to be so meek. And there was an entire discussion about that, and eventually she actually takes charge of that part of their life.
So close.
And that's when she gets pregnant. It's like this whole thing where like they're trying for an heir forever, and it's not until she finds herself and takes charge that it happens. And thematically, it made sense. And so like there was this, her journey just made a lot more sense in the book, where there wasn't so much, frankly, assault and garbage on Drogo's part, and just terrible things happening. But this is the other thing, though, is that at the end of the day, the implication is that she's going to go mad like the last Mad King. And I just really think that if that had been built up to, it could have been a genuinely great story, specifically for the fact that she is, to a degree, an identifiable character or an empathetic character, and could then start going toward madness, right? It's much more interesting when a character is empathetic but starts doing morally questionable things than it is when a character is morally questionable and starts doing morally questionable things, right? Or when they just suddenly swerve. There's also that. You can make a character from a hero to a villain in 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think that could have genuinely been an interesting conclusion to the story if she had begun to go mad, and he killed her to prevent the possibility, not because she'd already done it. And more than that, being as Jon Snow is also a Targaryen, they should have showed more hints of his madness. If she's going mad, why isn't he?
There was tons of stuff they should have shown more of. Like, they gave Arya these incredible abilities, and then,
They disappeared overnight.
You know what I mean? Or, like, the Night King is this demon they build up for several seasons, and then Arya beats him without using all these abilities. Like, it was the worst storytelling ever, man. That entire thing. I don't know. Those writers should be embarrassed.
Yeah.
For the way that.
Well,
whole
the thing is
ended.
that what's so heartbreaking about the whole ending of Game of Thrones is that it's mostly just because Benioff and Weiss weren't feeling up to it anymore. Because we know they could write. A lot of the amazing stuff from the earlier seasons was actually not from the books. A lot of cool conversations and scenes and like a lot of awesome stuff. So that wasn't the problem. Like a lot of people want to say like, oh yeah, as soon as they didn't have the books to lean on, it went off the rails. But that's just not true. A lot of cool stuff wasn't from the books. But we do know that Benioff and Weiss wanted to be done with it. They made that Star Wars deal, and then HBO also basically said like we can give you all the seasons you need, all the money you need, please just finish this decently. And they basically said yeah, thanks but no thanks, and we just want to be done within like 1 or 2 seasons now, which is even more horrifying if you take into account that like they could have gotten any like awesome, enthusiastic, ambitious person from like the writers room to run the show for the last few seasons. But even though they weren't feeling it anymore, they did want to sort of wrap it up themselves. And you can just tell that it's not a labor of love anymore at that point. Like those last 2 seasons, you're just phoning it in.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Especially given how much like everybody was interested in it, and it was an interesting show, you know?
It was a cultural phenomenon, That's the thing.
It made me watch Western fantasy shit, and I don't like Western fantasy shit. So I mean, that's impressive.
I mean, I will say too that like part of that is definitely the rewrites from the book, right? Like I will say, like one of the reasons I don't recommend the book is because there is a lot of assault in it. There's a lot of underage.
Oh yeah, everybody's
sexual
aged up,
situations.
like the kid characters. Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of stuff in those books that I find
a lot of
wildly
names.
morally questionable.
So many names of people, like every scene, you just get a list of names at the beginning, and it's wait, who, what? I don't know. I found that really challenging. Like who was where? There were people that were reading it with guides just to remember like who was where.
I mean, yeah, true. I think it's complicated.
She was hiding a shroom in her. She was hiding a shroom.
Yeah. Okay. So what's up with like? Does Bowser have like rabies or something? What's going on there?
I don't know, but like physics doesn't really exist in this world because he had a bowling ball in that little floaty thing.
I mean, to be fair, this is Mario. Like physics never really were much of a.
Really?
Yeah.
So disappointed to hear this. All the expectations I had of
Who
Mario.
manufactured these toys?
And why is he giving them to me to kill him? So much doesn't make sense.
Good guy Bowser.
Good guy Bowser. See, you're not as bad as we thought you were, Bowser. Bows, as we like to call you. Now that we-
Bowser? I hardly know her.
Oh snap!
I like the theory that Bowser and Peach are just having a fling. They don't want Mario to catch on.
Oh,
like
wow.
every time they're like, "Oh no, you beat me again. Here you go," and then like until it's time again.
It's like we do want to meet up for some afternoon delight, but we can't do that obviously without anyone finding out. So let's just every single time people find out, we'll go with oh no, I have been kidnapped. Ha ha ha, Mario, you will never get back Peach. And yeah, that makes sense to me actually.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh no, he's angry.
I mean, I can see though, like Bowser has a lot of like sexy qualities to him. Or
He's very.
should we not go there?
He's big. He's muscular. He takes charge.
He's.
There you go.
There's a joke about his horns somewhere. in
Oh
all
god,
this.
no.
He is quite horny. This is
Yeah.
true.
And he is down to clown. I mean,
He
And
is
clearly,
down.
clearly he is
to
down
clown.
He's clearly a man of means.
funny thing is that like Bowser comes across, of course, as like more evil, but I can see Mario being like more of like a toxic masculine kind of a guy.
I mean, it
I think
depends
Mario's
on-
pretty conservative.
I think it depends on whether you take the Peach was kidnapped storyline for real.
Yeah.
Because, if Bowser's actually kidnapping Peach,
Yeah,
all the
then
time,
there's no-
obviously that's messed up.
Yeah.
But if he's not actually kidnapping Peach, then Mario is just assaulting an entire kingdom and committing genocide
Yeah.
for no reason.
Also, I think like Bowser gets freaky in the bedroom, and Mario is just just missionary all the time.
That's exactly why Peach needs to get away.
Yeah.
Bowser wears a collar, he wears cuffs, like he's clearly into some stuff.
Yeah. He's completely open to experiment. And Mario is just like...
Yeah, I feel like Bowser's a real leather
Whenever,
daddy.
if you would ever say like sex position, Mario would be like, "What? There's just the one, right? Like, I don't know what you mean. Like, what do you mean sex positions? Like
Bowser,
plural? Like
Bowser knows the exotic ones. The turtle, the dragon.
Turtle style. But isn't Mario committing genocide?
yeah, pretty much.
He kills so many creatures on his way.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. And I mean, like the explanation is that they were troopers for Bowser.
But they're not actively attacking you most of the time.
Right.
Like you have
for all we know,
Lakitu, you have the sports guys,
Yeah.
but like most characters are just walking.
Yeah,
they're just there.
For all we know, they're just wandering back and forth. Like, how do I get down? How do I? How did I end up here? And how do I get down?
Told to patrol.
They're just
so
pacing.
I'm patrolling, just walking
Like,
my patrol.
what if they all have like they have like these job interviews and they're just pacing because they're like, okay, so when they ask me what my strengths and weaknesses are, I'm gonna like they're just going over this in their heads and just pacing around, and then there's this crazy plumber that just starts jumping on top of their heads. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and what a way to die.
Yeah. Like
Really
getting
straight
stomped on the head. Like that's some
you're flat.
American History X bullshit right there. Like that's horrifying.
That scene.
That
Man.
could have been Mario.
Yeah. Yep.
Damn.
Suddenly, very glad I didn't watch that movie.
Yeah, it had a scene that...
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that were pretty intense about that movie, to say the least. But for some reason, that scene just stuck with me.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Stuck to the pavement too. Yeah.
Also.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
A winner is you.
So this was obviously the first episode of this, like our first run through, because
Yeah.
I don't know how many stages are still left to do, but I haven't done any of the special
I
stuff.
mean, there's credits, right? So I mean, that's
Alright. Next time.
the amazing flying hammer brother, jumping piranha plant. Like there's this. Oh wow.
The Piranha Plant also wasn't doing anything to you, you know? Bullet Bill is just, kind of flying around.
Monty Mole just doing his thing.
Yeah, Monty Mole was probably just home.
And mulling
Yeah.
around.
Just like literally, he's just home.
He's like, what's all this noise? And it's, the noise of Mario killing all these other guys. And he's just trying to see what's going on and then gets slaughtered for it.
He just hears the screaming of his brethren.
That's hard. He's like being a good Samaritan and then just getting punished for it.
Or the dinos over there. I mean, Mario just basically caused an extinction event.
We never see them again, do we? Yeah.
Oh, the...
Larg?
Larg.
Yeah, there's the
Lippo
swoopers and the buzzy
Larg.
beetles.
That's not even a name.
I mean,
Come on,
the poor
Nintendo.
things are just in their natural habitat doing their thing.
Rip Van Fish. Torpedo Ted.
Urchin. Urchin's a jerk.
And I mean,
See,
the
they don't
boos are
explain
already
the
dead.
ears, But yeah. Fish and Boo. It's like the name of your girlfriend that likes to...
The fishing boo?
It's called Hot.
I like it.
Thwomp. Isn't there a name for that when like the name of the thing is the sound it makes?
There is, and I forgot. Like I know onomatopoeia is a thing,
Yeah.
but there's another
Yeah.
word for when you're right. There's like the name of the thing is the sound.
That's not onomatopoeia. Oh, that one name. Yeah.
So does this mean that Reznor was named after Trent Reznor?
Probably.
Cause that would be rad.
Was Reznor like a thing at all in 1992? Because that's even before like the first.
What if Trent chose his name
Yeah,
from
'cause I
Mario?
think-
That's before their first release, though, right?
I think the first record, the one with Head Like a Hole on it, Pretty Hate Machine. I think that might have been late 80s.
I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah. Also for my own edification. The end.
I like how the brothers' facial proportions are wildly exaggerated, but Peach's are not.
Oh yeah, that's. Oh god. Oh god, that's so.
So-
I
right?
cannot
Like
unsee
now, it
this.
just looks like they're from two different things. Like yeah.
Luigi looks kind of. I don't want to say creepy, but he does look kind of creepy here.
He does look a bit creepy, yeah.
Ah.
He looks like he's thinking some things you don't want to know.
Mario looks. I mean, he's never been like an intellectual heavyweight, but he sure as shit doesn't look smart over here. My God.
Listen, he's supposed to be a plumber, and he ended up saving an entire kingdom. We don't
Luigi
know.
looks way smarter here than Mario.
Well, you're not wrong. He also looks conniving, though. I don't trust that Luigi.
It just goes to show you that you never know, because Mario looks like an innocent plumber, like a nice guy or whatever it is, but the
Shit.
murder.
But then he murders an entire
Interesting
kingdom, and then
mind. Broken
you know,
is two.
it's that game that's popular on TikTok right now. You know, he's a 10, but he murders entire kingdoms.
Yeah.
You know, he's an 8, but he's a plumber crawling through sewage pipes all day.
Oh my God, they must stink so bad.
He was. They were named after Trent Reznor, apparently.
Really?
Boom.
I'm not kidding you.
That's
That's
amazing.
actually pretty awesome.
I'm gonna need some actual, really decent confirmation on this, but it does.
We're
Yeah.
gonna have to do some further.
Similar to how the Koopalings are named after various musicians, Reznor is named after Trent Reznor.
Amazing.
Wow, that is so awesome.
That means whoever designed that mob
Had taste.
had fantastic taste. But yeah, all right, yeah. So it makes sense that because they were in the Woodstock reboot, the first one, not the Riot one, and they had this really famous performance where they were covered in mud, and they were playing stuff from Broken, and it was like legendary. Sick performance. All right, well, should we wrap it up?
Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
feels like a wrap.
The
All right.
end, it says.
The end. Thanks, everyone.
I'm glad I was able to play it.
I'm glad you were able to play it too, because I would never ever have gotten anywhere close to finishing this game.
Do we have an end slate?
No, so just press
Okay.
stop streaming
All right. Bye, everyone.
and then stop recording.